She's gonna tell us about it. Just listen. She can't stop herself now.
I spied on them. I should be ashamed of that, but I'm ashamed of nothing. Poor Roger, he was too drunk to be a satisfactory lover. She came out after him screaming and naked, waving some kind of small statuette. She used the filthiest language to humiliate him, and he was drunk. He'd had sudden spells of violence, and he had one then. He tore the statuette out of her hand.
Must have been a lot of blood.
Blood? Oh. When I got him back home in my car, he was very quiet. He wasn't drunk then. There was blood on his hair, all over the front of his coat. I cleaned him as best I could, and I put him to bed. And then I drove to the Chatsworth Reservoir, and you can guess what I did with a suitcase full of bloody clothes and towels. While I was away, he must have got up and drank a lot of whiskey. And the next morning, he didn't remember a thing.
What about Terry Lennox? Paul Marston, that is. Roger wrote something in his papers. He said a good man had died for him. Does that make sense to you?
Well, everything seemed to happen at once about that time. The papers were full of it, and then Paul was missing, and then he was dead in Mexico. And after all, Roger was still my husband.
What was Marlowe supposed to do in all this? It was your idea to get him involved.
I was afraid of Roger. And afraid for him. Mr. Marlowe was Paul's friend, almost the last person to see him who knew him, and Paul might have told him something, and I had to be sure. See, if he was dangerous, I wanted him on my side, and if he found out the truth, there might still be some way to save Roger.
Eileen, this isn't making sense.
I was afraid, Howard. Can't you understand that? I was living in the house with a murderer who might be a maniac.
Marlowe didn't take on the job of looking after him, so you were still alone. Then Roger fired the gun, and for a week after that, you were alone with him again. Then Roger killed himself only this time. Very conveniently, it was Marlowe who was alone with him.
What of it? Could I help that?
Apparently the police suspected you. They still do. All they need is a motive. It looks to me like they might be able to put one together.
I think you'd both better leave my house. The sooner the better.
Did you or didn't you?
Did I or didn't I what?
Shoot Roger.
I was out. I'd forgotten my keys. I had a ring to get into the house. He was dead when I got home. All that is known. What's got into you, for God's sake?
Eileen, this has worried me from the start. I've stayed in this house 20 times. I've never known that front door to be locked during the daytime.
So I shot my own husband?
Assuming that he was your husband. You had another when you married.
Thank you, Mr. Marlowe. Thank you, Howard. Roger's last book, his swan song, is there in front of you. Take it and go. And I think you'd better call the police and tell them what you both think. Now, I'm very tired, and I have a headache.
Just a moment, Mrs. Wade. Let's finish the job. No sense of being bitter. That suitcase you threw into the Chatsworth Reservoir, was it heavy?
It was very heavy, of course.
So how'd you get it over the high wire fence around the reservoir?
What? The fence? Well, I suppose in emergencies one has an abnormal strength to do what has to be done. Somehow or other I did it, that's all.
There isn't any fence.
Isn't any fence.
And there was no blood on Roger's clothes. And Sylvia wasn't killed outside the guest house, but inside it on the bed. And there was practically no blood because she had already been shot dead with a gun before the statuette was used to beat her face to a pulp. And the dead Mrs. Wade weighed very little.
I suppose you were there.
I was here when Roger was killed. I left him trying to remember what really happened the night Sylvia died. Maybe he did remember, and then he knew once and for all that he wasn't the murderer.
So who was?
I think you know the answer.
Do I?
That's why Roger had to be silenced too.
Just go, both of you. I'm going to my room to lie down. Leave me in peace.
We watch her go. She goes up the stairs slowly, moving with calm elegance, and disappears into her room. Silence.
What was that about the wire fence?
Just a gag. Maybe it has a fence around it, maybe not. I have no idea.
Neither did she.
Of course not. She killed them both.
Well, we've got to call the police.
Why?
My God, Marlowe, we have to.
Tomorrow. Pick up your pile of unfinished novel. We haven't enough evidence to swat a fly with. But the law enforcement people do their own dirty work.
There's such a thing as justice. It's moral. Millón de perdones, senor. I was wrong about you. She killed the boss.
I know hard feelings, Candy. Senora is very tired. She's gone to her room.
I'll show you out. I've been thinking she must be a little insane. I guess they'll never convict her.
They won't even try. She doesn't know that. I went home, but I couldn't sleep. I seemed to hear a steady ticking somewhere.